Dr. Deming, in order for American industry to be competitive in world markets in the years and decades to come, a transformation needs to take place in management. Part of that transformation, in order to make that transformation, a lot of training needs to be done, among other things. Right now there's a whole lot of training going on, but there's some good training and some bad training, and I was wondering whether you could comment on some of the problems you see in current training programs.
Well, I don't know what you mean by training, but I know what I mean. The training has got to take place in the management, and I mean top management. If you speak of decades to come, I think you may be aware that Western industry, and including American industry, has been on the decline for years. They can't hold the market at home or abroad. That's not true of every product, as you know, but it's true with most of them, and it's adversely affecting the balance of trade. The market has been declining because American stuff, on the whole, cannot compete at home or abroad. A new kind of management must take place, and it must be quite different, totally different from what management has been accustomed to. And management, if you ask me, I'd say there's lots of talk about quality, but very little action. In fact, I think my impression is, and I have some reason, some basis for my statements, that most management is unaware that anything has been happening, and if it has, certainly management had nothing to do with it. How could there be anything wrong with management when we did so well? In the decades, 1950 up till 1968 or 69, American stuff held the market the world over. What could be wrong? Didn't we do a good job? The answer is that they did a wretched job, and are still doing it. The decline has set in because of failure of American management. Unemployment is not inevitable. It is a result of bad management. People go on the street for loss of market. I don't mean that there can always be success and never any loss of market, but loss of market comes mostly from bad management. And people go on the street because of bad management. Lost the market. Can't hold it. It's so ridiculous to me to think that Americans can't do it. This is sheer nonsense. Management, of course, thinks that it's for the other fellow. Top management has no awareness of what their job is. And how could they learn? You cannot learn the job of management on the job. Experience teaches nothing without theory. And theory may be only a hunch, and it may be a wrong hunch. But unless you ask questions, you learn nothing in management or in any other profession. No, management is unaware that they have a job. I'm speaking generally. I'm speaking of 97, 98% of management are unaware that they have a job. If the market is lost because of bad quality, then they think that it's the fault lies in the factory floor. I receive in the mail, perhaps 2 times a week, plans that some people in management have for improvement, and it's always for the other fellow. Always for the factory floor. If they would turn out better quality, we'd have better quality. I haven't seen a word sent to me on any page that's been sent to me about what management must do. The fact is that management must do most of it. I could recount to you an example where, with a simple suggestion, the company is saving from here on out $186,000 per day. Now that sounds like a lot. Sounds terrific. Did you know that's only about 1/30 as much as the total? Most of the rest must be accomplished by the management. They have no idea of the magnitude of their job. It's staggering, and they have no idea what it is. And they could not learn on the job. They cannot learn on the job.
If experience will not teach them what they need to know for their job, how are they going to learn it?
They can learn only by listening to somebody on the outside. Their impression is that somebody that does not know the company, that has not tramped around in the factory, cannot help them. That's ridiculous. You mean that they don't have anybody that knows anything about the factory? They have hundreds of people that know a lot. They know everything except what's necessary to know for improvement. They know everything else.
How can our education system help prepare people better for management positions?
Our educational system could teach the obligations, the responsibilities of top management. What happens when they fail? What happens when they see their responsibilities and act? And I don't mean that the results will always be good or great, or that they'll take place immediately. Of course, a lot of management, when they think that something can be done, is looking for instant pudding, not knowing that, in my estimate, it'll take 3 decades for American industry to stabilize. There'll have to be a lot of changes in management, a lot of changes in government. But a lot will have to happen within 2 years, Mr. Scherkenbach, and I mean 2 years. The time fuse is running pretty short. A lot of activity will have to be obvious, the results obvious, within 2 years, or the decline will get worse sharply.
Could you explain what you mean by instant pudding?
By instant pudding, I mean people that write to me these words: please, find a day to come and spend with us. Do for us what you did for Japan. A company on the West Coast called me yesterday several times, begging that I would spend a day with them. There are 300 people in management. I declined because they would learn nothing in 3 days. In 1 day, they'd learn nothing. They would only come away confused, I fear. It takes time to learn what the job is, and then time to put into action what has been learned, and with help. I mean, it's a big job. Management has no idea how big the job is, nor how long it will take, but I'm telling you, a lot of activity will have to be obvious within 2 years, or the decline will bend down pretty sharply.
Where could management start in trying to learn their jobs?
It's possible to learn. There are publications, there are seminars in which they can learn what their job is. They will not learn it on the job.
So far,
They have to get help from the outside.
So far, what you've said involves management relearning their job. First of all, finding out what the job is. And not once have you mentioned statistics or statistical thinking, if you will, the use of SPC. I was wondering why that hasn't come into the conversation.
Well, it does not always come into the conversation, but it does come in sometimes. Somehow or other, some people have the idea that improvement of quality comes solely by application of statistical methods. And the record is very clear and clean that within 3 years you cannot even find smoke where the methods were, in spite of brilliant accomplishments. The company goes broke, or the impact is so small by comparison with what is required that it all just disintegrates. The job of management, as I said, is staggering. People in management, for the most part, have no idea what their job is, nor how important it is. How could they know? If they knew, if experience would teach, Mr. Scherkenbach, why are we in this predicament? There's only one answer: experience does not teach.
How could how could the educational system in the United States, perhaps from the grade schools on up through universities, help educate management?
There's a lot to learn. One could make a statement. I would sign it. But I think it would be misleading. It would not be understood by the non-technical listener. That he that had even a fuzzy understanding of variation would understand a great deal about management, about supervision, which is management's responsibility, one of their great responsibilities, would understand procurement better, would understand manufacturing better, would understand the service industries better, would understand sales better. This teaching of variation could start in the 8th grade, if not sooner. In fact, people learn a lot in the 9th grade about probability, but I'm afraid they learn not much wrong, but they deal with idealized situations and without applications that are important. For example, my good friend Dr. Lloyd Nelson, who is now with Nashua Corporation, makes the remark that engineers are taught that if you want to know how wide something is, for example, this piece of wood here, you just measure it. Then you know. But if you measure it twice, you get another number, and now you don't know. So it's better just to take a deterministic point of view, measure it once, and you know. My friend who's deceased now, Professor Fred Stefan, was talking to the head of the organization of pharmacists. I don't know the actual title of the organization, but the man wanted to know something about the work that Professor Stefan was in, and he made the remark, well, now you weigh something on a balance, you get a figure, number of grams, milligrams. You weigh again, you get something else, and now you don't know what the weight is, and you have to work with variation. The man said, not in our trade. We have to be right the first time. No errors in our work are permitted. It's that's the way people view it. Do it right. There's a lot of talk about do it right the first time. How can people do it right the first time when they don't know what the job is? How can they do it right the first time when the stuff is already defective? So simple to management when they know nothing about it. If you ask, well, what are some of the jobs of management? Let me just recount one or two, only one or two. Number one, two sources of supply for some one item. For example, well, take any part of this pen. One of the different parts could be made in different factories, could be, and you might have 2, 3, or 4 suppliers of this part. It's better to have one. In the transition that is going to take place, the transformation, there will be one supplier for any one item. Now, this will take time. It'll take years. To work with 2 doubles your responsibility to work with your vendors. There is no company that has knowledge and manpower to work with one supplier for even a half a dozen items, let alone hundreds that Ford deals with. There's no company that has enough knowledge or manpower to work with one supplier. Don't tell me that you can work with 2 or 3 or 4. Absolutely ridiculous. And management does not know that. Emphasis is on the quarterly dividend. Emphasis should be on constancy of purpose to stay in business as an institution of the company, regardless of who comes in as president. There should be security. of jobs in management, and not the necessity just to go along, play politics to hold a job. These are some of the problems that management must face. I find that management can face almost anything except the problems of people.
Mm-hmm.
They, maybe some of them live in constant fear of their jobs. Companies going on the rocks. They're in terror. They see costs going up, market going down, problems all around, and taxes. They can face those. They can face them together sometimes in teamwork. But when it comes to problems of people, they cannot act. They turn the job over to somebody else. There are two classes of problem, I'd say, with people. One is with the hourly workers, the factory floor. There's the place where there need not be any problems. The factory worker, I find the world over, and this has been true for decades, and I have some way to know, has always been interested in quality. Not only interested, quality means his job. Faulty quality in the hands of a customer means that he loses his job. He goes to work every day in terror of his job. He knows not whether he'll have a job next week or next month. He is the only one, they tell me they are the only ones interested in quality. All they ask for is a chance to take pride in their work. And if you ask me, I would say not 2 hourly workers, factory workers in 100 can take pride in their work.
What are some of the barriers to them taking pride in their work? Why can't they take pride in their work?
One of the big barriers is emphasis on quality, not on quantity, not quality. Emphasis on quantity, not quality. They tell you the management talks about quality, but if they don't get out the numbers, we won't have jobs. That's what they tell me. It is not what management says, but perception and rumor is what run the company. Now, as long as quantity governs, then anything will go. Incentive pay, for example, is bad management, because the job is to get out so many, good and bad makes no difference. Get them out, get higher pay. Incentive pay is almost a sure road toward poor quality, and along with it, loss of market. Another barrier is materials already defective. No matter what you do, you cannot turn out a job that you could take pride in. Another is tools that are bought at cheap price, but which wear out in a hurry or break, take time to replace. The hourly worker complains about spending time on repair, waste. He sees waste. He does not like it. Takes time to change tools. Takes time to try to hide defects already in the material. He does not like it. There's nothing he can do about it. If he complains to the foreman more than 3 times, he becomes a marked man. If anybody has to go, you're a good candidate. Complain about maintenance. Machine's not working properly. More than 3 times, you become a marked man. The foreman has to get out so many today. Most foremen know nothing about the job. He can do nothing about a problem that does turn up. He's helpless.
Can you blame the foreman, though?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. He has a job, perhaps not to his liking. He was put there. As a matter of fact, some foremen are very much afraid that they'll be put back, demoted to hourly workers if they don't get out the quota consistently, day by day.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of foremen don't know the job, never were on it, and no way to learn it. and he can get no action. You hourly workers tell me you go to the foreman with a problem, he just smiles and walks away. I think I can tell you why. In the first place, he does not understand the problem. In the second place, he could get no action on it if he did understand it. The other part of the problem with people is in management. People in management cannot do their work to their satisfaction. They don't dare. They work in fear of having an idea or presenting an idea that is at variance in any way from policy decided by somebody else. Better not to have an idea, just go along. This is why a lot of people cannot put their hearts and souls into the job, because they think the policy is not to the best interest of the company, and they have no voice, no way to present ideas and to defend them, to talk them through, or to talk about other ideas. In other words, no teamwork. Now, this is not 100% true. I work only with companies that I think are good and advancing. I don't work with the others. There's a lot of good management in this country, but we don't have time to talk all about it today. Mm-hmm. The annual rating on performance, for example, robs people in management of their chance to work for the company. They don't dare. They become politically minded, go along, don't take any point of view at variance with the policy that's been decided. Everybody becomes a little businessman by himself, becomes politics, go along. The annual rating has a lot of negative effects. In the first place, most annual ratings, by most I mean 99%, are mere lotteries. Somebody that gets a low rating is there by lot. Somebody gets a high rating is there by lot. No account taken of the fact that most of the differences between people come from the system itself. That could be taught in the 8th grade and the 9th grade and the 10th, could be taught in community colleges. It's not taught in schools of business because there's nobody there that knows it. Nobody could teach it because nobody knows about it. Community colleges could teach it. Teachers would have to learn it, but they're in position to learn, I think. To understand that most, and I mean 99%, of performance ratings of people in management are nothing more than a lottery. There's only one little trouble. People don't see it as a lottery. He that gets a low rating feels inferior. His manager considered him to be inferior. Mm-hmm. What does he do? He looks for another job, which accounts in part for the mobility of management in America, which is helping to destroy American management, American industry. It makes him despondent, in despair, for weeks after receiving a rating, especially if he had had a good rating last year, or for the last 2 or 3 years, then to receive one lower puts him in a very desperate condition. If he could understand that it's a lottery, he would merely feel unlucky. Unfortunately, everybody in management thinks that he can rate other people. I don't know where all this ability comes from, because they, for the most part, have no way to measure, and never knew that there was a way to measure how much of the apparent differences between people come from the system itself and not from the people. It is certain that if you have 10 people, one of them will be at the top and one at the bottom on any method of scoring, whatever. I don't care what it is. I don't know whose theorem it is, but it must go back a long way. Of 10 people, or 6 or 5 or 100, somebody will be at the top and somebody will be at the bottom. That you know before you start. You don't know who it will be, but to be in the bottom 10% usually means nothing at all. Somebody had to be there. Means nothing. To be below average means nothing. Most supervision consists of finding who is below average. and doing something about it. They have no business being there. You have no business being in the bottom 10%. If you have 10 people, one of them will be in the bottom 10%, and there's not much that you can do about it. That indicates nothing. It is necessary to know, to have ways to discover who is outstanding on either side. That could be taught in community colleges, for example. It could be taught in the high schools. So far as I know, it's not being taught. The fundamentals are being taught, but without the application. The theory is being taught, but totally unrelated to application. The applications are all around us.
Could you mention the couple of articles that you saw in first the London Times and then I believe the Wall Street Journal to further describe what you mean by above average and below average?
Well, you saw it too. Everybody saw it. There was an article in the, I believe, U.S. News and World Report, and perhaps surely in other magazines, and certainly in newspapers, that a committee of historians had made a study of our presidents from George Washington on downward, and discovered, believe it or not, Mr. Scherkenbach, that half of our presidents have been above average. We have a lot to be thankful for. Suppose that they'd all been below average. They seem not to know that no matter what scale of rating you use for our presidents, no matter what, whether it made sense or not, half of them would be above average and half below. That roughly a quarter of them would appear to be great because they were in the upper quarter. There is no escape from it. Been known for centuries, now rediscovered with a very important pronouncement that half of our presidents have been above average. How lucky we are.
Exactly so. Doctor, I want to break your train of thought, but we talked about something this morning that, and I thought it was extremely interesting, and that is your thoughts on labor, the hourly worker, as a commodity. If you could explain a bit, tell that story, if you would.
Mr. Scherkenbach, this is interesting, and I could go on and on, but I'll get stopped. The one way to learn something about the company, now only a part of the company, a way to learn something about the factory floor, and that is important. Management has, as you know, I've outlined 14 obligations and obligations to abolish deadly diseases. But the factory floor is important. But to learn about problems of the factory floor, you have to talk to people. But you cannot learn it by walking around. Somebody described good management as management by walking around. Well, it helps to walk around a little, but you do not learn problems that way. Everything looks rosy. To find about problems, you have to talk to hourly workers in a group and get them to do the talking. Just ask questions, start them off on what are the problems. What robs you of your pride of workmanship? And you'll find out, first off, they'll bring it up, that they would like to take pride in their work. They'll bring it up themselves. Now, what's holding you back? Why can't you? And they'll tell you a lot. And that's the only way you can learn about the problems of the factory floor. You'll learn, for example, that having two vendors for the same thing, that they learn to use this part that comes from one vendor, and it may take 15 minutes, up to 2 hours, sometimes a week, to learn how to use the same part, just as good, that comes from another source. Unbelievable. As one hourly worker put it to me, equally good, but different. Management doesn't know these things. Purchasing department doesn't know about them. Their mandate has been to get the lowest prices on everything, never mind how they work. So they get bids from several different sources, and all the sources have to meet the lowest. When their job, when the purchasing department has a job to get the lowest prices, they defeat the company. because minimizing cost one place may well be maximizing costs at another place, and hence maximizing the total cost to the company. Only management can understand, only management is responsible, and I mean top management, for looking at the company as a whole to minimize total cost, and not the cost here or there or there, to get departments, staff areas to work together. That's difficult in the face of the annual rating. Difficult for people to work together, because they get rated on their own performance, own performances, individually. Did I?
No. What I was talking about is your observation that you can't blame the union worker for wanting to get the highest salary because he's treated as a commodity. He's here one day, gone the next. You go to the Chicago Board of Trade, and that's the price you pay, and you can get it.
Let me give an example. I met not long ago with 40 skilled tradesmen. They were working overtime, sometimes 2 hours, sometimes 3, but not knowing till Thursday of any week whether they would be called back to the company the next week. They might be called and they might not. And one of them remarked, "We are a commodity." And I saw the connection. They are a commodity on the commodities exchange. You don't have to buy anything today. You can defer it till tomorrow. You don't have to buy anything. They are a commodity. They may be bought next week, or they may not be. Naturally, they ask for the highest price. If you had something for sale on the commodities exchange, I think you'd be a fool to take anything but the lowest price you could get for it today. I don't know why you should. You're there for the highest price. They are treated like a commodity, bought and sold like a commodity. They naturally ask for high prices, the highest that they can get, just as any of us would if we had something to sell. Maybe with people ask for security. People would like to know if they're going to have a job next week, and it's true with management as well. Perhaps even more so. Perhaps they have a right to know something about the plans of the company. Will we have a job next week? Will we have a job next year? How can somebody devote his knowledge to the company and do it with devotion when he's not sure if he'll be there next week or next year? It's a little difficult. He'll be looking around for another job. If he has any sense and any ability, he'll be trying to look out for himself. Nobody else is doing it. These are some of the problems that management must face. Another one is running a company on visible figures only. No, visible figures are important. You dare not wake up some morning and find that your bank account is overdrawn. You have vendors to pay, payroll to meet, taxes to pay. Somebody's got to keep the books in balance, and he has to have some idea of what the costs are going to be. Unfortunately, he has to make some kind of calculation on what the sales are going to be. But he that runs the company on visible figures only, I'd say, will have neither company nor figures. Give him a little time. The most important figures are unknown and unknowable. That comes from my good friend, Dr. Lloyd Nelson. The most important figures are unknown and unknowable. And I can tell you about some of them. One, for example, is the multiplying effect of a happy customer that brings business into the company. Another one is the multiplying effect of an unhappy customer that warns his friends and some of his enemies about his experience. Another one is the multiplying effect that comes from a group that is able to make a contribution to the company as a team. They see their jobs now not just as appearing in the morning, going home at night, and receiving a paycheck. They see their jobs as important. We're helping the company to improve. Their life changes. I see them. They have an interest in the company. But that takes teamwork, and it takes good management to bring that about. You spoke of some of the other problems of management. One of them, you must have had it in mind when you asked me, is, for example, rating of departments and divisions at the corporate office. I see a lot of it. And unfortunately, I must tell you that a lot of it makes no sense at all. Rating divisions on what is unimportant, not seeing what is important. For example, rating the manufacturing division on ability to meet specifications. Well, no, to meet specifications is important, but I'll tell you something far more important, and that is continual improvement. To shrink the variation of the measurements of whatever it is that they're making. Continually shrink the variation. Because as you shrink the variation, in other words, improve the dependability of the product and improve its quality, your costs go down. This chain reaction, which Japanese management had seen, but had not emblazoned on the wall, but which became a way of life at my worked with them in the summer of 1950, is important. This chain reaction merely says that as you improve quality, you decrease your cost, you can lower the price, you capture the market with better quality and lower price, and you keep the company in business, you provide jobs and more jobs. So simple. Then management, under acceptance of this chain reaction, knowing what management must do to improve quality, then the people on the factory floor and management have the same aim, improve quality. But shouting improve quality will not do it. You have to know what to do.
So in the long term, you will be able to choose suppliers on quality as well as cost, because the highest quality will cost less. Certainly not today, but in the future.
Yes, as I mentioned, the trend must be for companies that survive, be one supplier for any one item. How do you choose that supplier? Now, sometimes I see all kinds of problems, believe me. Follow me around, you must know many kinds of problems. Sometimes one supplier cannot supply you enough today. You need two or three in order to get enough of an uncertain supply. But to choose one to work with, to develop on a long-term agreement with long lead time, you require a vendor that plans to work on his problems of management in the same way that you were trying to work on yours. That would mean, as I said, long-term arrangement, long lead time, and can be only a gentleman's agreement. Now, eventually, that supplier will give you better quality at lower and lower costs. Year by year, better and better quality, lower and lower costs. This is what must take place. This is what will take place amongst companies that survive.
I want to change thoughts a bit. There's been a lot of SPC training, a lot of control chart training going on. Could you comment on that?
Well, control charts are pretty important in the right place, but all told, all put together, in spite of meteoric accomplishments. One I mentioned, $186,000 per day, not to sneer at, is such a small part of the total accomplishment. But though it seems huge, it is almost insignificant. It's insignificant compared to what management must do. And the management, for the most part, I'd say 99%, even of those that are aware of the need for change, are totally unaware of their responsibilities. What they must do, how could they learn? Certainly not on the job. And they think that it's purely a matter of teaching enough people statistical methods. The record is clear and clean, so far no exception. Within 3 years, it's all blown away. Not even smoke left. No sign of it. It's a way of ducking out. Management can delegate. And I think in good management, you should delegate. Top management can't do it all. But I think in order to delegate something, you have to know what it is that you're delegating. And if you can't do it, you can't delegate it. You better not. Management can learn, and they can learn from someone that they delegate to. SPC, Statistical Process Control, or SQC, Statistical Quality Control, sounds great, but it's a way of ducking out. Delegating it, supposing that this solves all the problems. Unfortunately, it does no such thing.
I see also in the teaching of control charts that a lot of it is done in the absence of the overall management philosophy. It in many cases is taken out of context. And if you would comment on that.
This is most unfortunate, and what you say is absolutely true. In fact, I don't know of an exception. Maybe I know of one exception, maybe I know two teachers that understand the responsibilities of management and teach statistical methods as necessary, teach where and when they can be useful. I would say also that he that understood statistical methods even had a fuzzy understanding of variation, as I said before, would understand the problems of management, including the problems of supervision, procurement, manufacture, sales, personnel. You'd understand those things. You'd understand what's wrong with the annual rating.
In order for management really to change company systems, to remove those barriers or inhibitors, as you call them, they really have to understand variability. So there's no delegating, as you say, that responsibility. They can't say, well, it's for my people, not for me, or for manufacturing, not for me. This is not the quality control, the use of control charts that it was decades ago, or even 5 years ago, as it was understood.
No, I'm afraid that the teaching is pretty shallow. It need not be, but I'm talking about this world as it is, not what it ought to be, nor am I talking about the next world. We have this one. We have to work in this one for a while.
You had mentioned several times in the conversation the word fear came up. Could you explain more about that and why you think that it's perhaps one of the first things management needs to look at in trying to change company systems?
Fear, as you would lead your listeners to think, is one of the severe problems, taking a terrible toll. Where are the controller's figures on the losses from fear? He doesn't have them. They're enormous. Nobody knows their magnitude. Fear that people have of having an idea. Don't have an idea. Go along. Don't be accused of treason. Go along. Play politics to get ahead. This requires fundamental change. It will require abolishment of the annual rating and put in its place supervision and help to people, development of teamwork so that people can work together.
Could you name some other company systems that could contribute to fear? You had mentioned the financial management system, perhaps, and you had mentioned the personnel evaluation system.
Well, you see it even on the factory floor. For instance, I could play a tape for you. And it's in my book. Millwright, feeling of a bearing, feeling it getting warm, dangerously warm, said to the foreman, we ought to stop and take care of it now. If we don't, it may freeze on us and score the shaft. The foreman knew what to do. The foreman knew very well what to do for the good of the company. Halt, no. Repair it. Take 20 minutes. Said, his answer was, we can't stop now. We have to get out all these castings today. Did not dare stop now. Well, he didn't make it. The bearing did freeze. It did score the shaft. And the line was down 4 days. Well, they got a new shaft in Baltimore and installed it. But he did his job. He was in fear of his job. He might not be foreman tomorrow if he didn't get these castings out. All he could do was try. He did not dare do what was right for the company. This pervades the whole company. Fear the hourly worker. Don't complain about maintenance, tools that don't work, or that are soft, materials already defective or hard to work with. Complain 3 times. You become a marked man. Fear is worse in the management. They dare not have ideas. Go along.
Could you comment on the daily production report or daily sales reports?
I can't think of anything that would be more confusing than daily figures on anything. I would find it difficult to interpret them. I find that yesterday's figures showed lower production than the day before. What happened? Overreacting to anything that happens only makes things worse. It's unbelievable. But it's so easy to show. In fact, you don't need a computer. You could show yourself. Just to take a simple example, if your job was to hold a gauge at 3.6, and this is directly translatable into study of daily figures or weekly figures on sales, production, number of defective items, anything whatever. Reaction, immediate reaction to anything will only make things worse. You don't need a computer. You could do it yourself by jiggling some apparatus and reset it, fine-tune it at every jolt to bring it back to the nominal value, say 3.6, whatever that might be. Anything that happens, we adjust. Something went wrong, no matter what. If it isn't right on the target, something went wrong. Or if it goes down when you'd like it to go up, something happened. That overreaction, and you can show it for yourself. You don't need mathematical theory, though mathematical theory will give you the same answer. You only elevate. You expand the variability, and you make things worse. Unbelievable, but you can show it so easy. That could be taught. That could be taught in the 8th grade, and the students would be fascinated with it. Would teach them something about this world, just as chemistry teaches us about this world, or physics, or paleontology, or history, or languages. That would teach them something vital, and unfortunately, they learn nothing about it. They don't learn it in school. They don't learn it in engineering courses. They learn it in statistical courses, but without application. Not enough application. They don't get it in a school of business. And they somehow go into management on the supposition that they can manage when they have not the requirements, have not the rudiments of knowledge that is required for management. Most unfortunate. And the result is, as we see it, the results are obvious. They're in the papers. They're in the books. The decline of American industry. Very interesting. that Japan had nothing and still has nothing. No natural resources, no oil, no coal, no wood, no iron ore, nothing of that. A little bit of water power, no oil. But they have people, and they have good management. We have some natural resources, we have people, and we're on the decline. There are problems in Japan, I know very well there are. But they've created this world's greatest display of industry out of nothing but people and good management. Starting with negative net worth, from reputation for sordid quality, cheap, of consumer goods, cheap but worth the price. In spite of that handicap, look what they've done. Think of the storehouse of skills that we have in our 8 million unemployed, a lot of whom are willing to work. Some not only willing to work, but have skills that are vital to American industry. Think of that loss. Think of the far greater loss of the millions of people in management that cannot work, dare not deliver to American industry what they're capable of delivering. Dare not. Put that all together, this may be the world's most underdeveloped nation. We're number one. Think of it. We did it again.
Seems to me that there is a very good parallel between your characterization or observation of Japan after the war, having nothing but people and management and very little resources, and any individual community in America. Certainly they have people as resources, limited number of, in any one community, a limited number of other natural resources. It seems to me that that the communities could coalesce and work to develop that management resource. Now, I know several groups throughout the country are looking to implement, first of all, understand, and secondly, implement your 14 points. I was wondering if you could give any observation or pointers or perhaps reveal some of the experiences that some of those groups have had. For instance, Jackson, Michigan, the Goal, people out in San Diego, and those are just to name a few.
I think that you have been reading an article in the last Atlantic, which I have not even finished because it came only yesterday or the day before. The title being The Wealth of Cities. Adam Smith wrote The Wealth of Nations. It's not nations, but cities. At the time he wrote it, a nation was a city. I mean, it was only the cities that counted. I think the author forgot that, the one in the Atlantic. But it's magnificent. You're so right. Let us say that no community need be poor if it has people and good management. No country need be poor if it has people and good management. Don't ask me where the good management is going to come from. That I cannot tell you. But if they have people and good management, they need not be poor. They need not be wealthy either, but they need not be in poverty.
I know you told me not to ask you, but where could good management come from? How can you develop good management within a community?
I think but they only need to get away from the supposition that they can learn on the job. They need to simply adopt the point of view that there's a lot to learn and that we can do it. Doesn't make any sense to me that we should be the world's most underdeveloped nation. Doesn't make any sense to me. Makes no sense to me that American industry should be on the decline. Where are you going to get the good management from? It'll have to be developed. You certainly can't import it. I don't know where you'd get it. You might say, well, Japan has good management. They do have a lot of good management. But that doesn't mean that you could transplant it here and make it all work. It'll have to be developed. I can't think of a better question. I think this is terribly important. It'll have to be developed and could be developed within communities. For example, the Gold Project for Lawrence, Massachusetts. Top management there could learn what the job is. Maybe some of them will. Maybe some of them are learning and improving. Philadelphia has started one. What will happen, nobody knows. It's totally up to them, to their top management. But so many of them, and you brought it out earlier, think that it's instant pudding. Just tell us what to do, and we will do it. A company on the West Coast, as I said, called several times, can't take no for an answer. To come, spend a day with us, tell us what to do. That's all that they need. If you can't come one day, a half a day. We need to know what to do. Unfortunately, it is a long learning process.